when we look at Viverse, kind of the way that we're thinking about it is this content distribution platform for 3D experiences, said like similar to YouTube for 3D stuff. Just like on YouTube, you have like the super highly produced stuff, and then you have a person with their iPhone walking around the streets, and both can see success. It doesn't mean that one shouldn't exist.
And that was ANDRANIK Aslanyan. He's head of growth for Viverse at HTC, where he leads business strategies across marketing, social media, and product development to grow and scale this world-building platform built on the web for the web. In this conversation, we look at unique features offered to world builders to help them overcome the limitations of the web.
So Viverse is built on open source technologies. On top of that, we have some proprietary stuff like polygon streaming on desktop. At MWC, we had a demo where we had 70 million polygons in the environment on screen using polygon streaming, and it was running like 60 FPS.
How can creators monetize their work on Viverse?
We've seen creators do things where they launch worlds and then list them as public, but with a password, and then they only give the password to their Patreon subscribers. We have the creator program where we provide guaranteed funding if you're accepted, and then we're also working on monetization tools like subscriber-only content and advertising and all sorts of things, in-app purchases.
How Viverse has implemented Gaussian Splatting.
We support Gaussian splats directly. You can mix and match, so you can have like your Gaussian splat environment, but then add 3D meshes into it or triggers and things like that. Yeah, we're working on expanding polygon streaming to also support splat streaming because people want to have splats that are enormous.
And a precious advice he gives to world builders.
I don't think branded experiences are necessarily going to bring you immediate success. Like if you were going to compare a project that would take a year and bring you 500,000 views versus 3 months and 250,000 views, do the shorter one because...
And now it's time to roll the title and welcome ANDRANIK under the spotlight. ANDRANIK, it is a real pleasure to have you here.
Yeah, thank you. It's a very nice intro. Happy to be here and talk about our platform.
So let's start with a question that probably everybody is asking. So what makes Viverse different from other platforms that allow creators to build virtual worlds?
Sure. So Viverse is built on open source technologies, and on top of that, we have some proprietary stuff like polygon streaming that makes it possible for you to stream in really high density models. Typically, this is a really big issue for web games or experiences. You have to deliver the entire package before someone's able to play. And with polygon streaming, we just deliver what you need at the time that you need it and at the density that you need it at that time. So you can think of it kind of like how video streaming works, but instead it's meshes. Another part of it kind of is, as time goes on, people have better internet connections, better computers, but actually, Viverse, because it's on the web, it's no install. So it works like on your PC, on your mobile phone, on your VR headset, anywhere you have a web browser, it can basically run. We're just currently, we have a web builder where it's meant for people who don't really have a lot of technical expertise. It's integrated with Sketchfab, so you can bring in meshes for free, or you can upload your own and kind of decorate a space. And if you do have a bit more technical expertise, you can use Play Canvas to build anything you want, the entire video game. It's basically a game engine.
So we're going to cover all these aspects, right? In a sense, so there is this open source part with Play Canvas. There is this polygon streaming that I'm also curious to learn a bit more about. Now, one point is also, so what are the incentives, right, for creators to build these virtual worlds in general? First, maybe just high level, and then on Viverse more specifically. So can you tell us more about this?
Yeah, that's a great question. I mean, you've probably seen what's going on with the vibe coding world out there. People are using AI, never been a game developer before, and basically prompting video games into into existence just out of nothing. And that's all great and it kind of runs locally, but then you need a way to distribute that. And so actually when we look at Viverse, kind of the way that we're thinking about it is this content distribution platform for 3D experiences, said like similar to YouTube for 3D stuff. And going along with kind of thinking, limiting it to what we currently have is just not good enough because people are making products using all sorts of technologies, not just Play Canvas, 3JS, A-Frame. Actually, when they're using AI just will randomly pick a framework that people have never even heard of, probably when it's their first time making stuff. React 3 Fiber is a common one that's picked by AI. And so actually we're working on bringing all of that to Viverse, opening the door. So soon, maybe when you're listening to this podcast, we'll have a CLI that lets you upload any web experience to our platform. And we're also launching a creator studio where you can browse all of your uploaded content and just like one click upload a zip file of your experience, regardless of the framework that it's built on, which also opens the door to things like Unity and Godot. I mean, all of those actually work. We've been testing with it.
So let's go back to these words like incentives, right? So let's say one incentive that I might have is that I can vibe code anything and then distribute it through Viverse. That's high level, one concept that you're bringing up. The other concept is also that I can actually, when creating and building these worlds, so what are the elements to this? Because I might have...
Yeah, so we're hosting it for free, so you can instantly share it with your friends. And then we have the creator program where you apply if you've already built it or if you're going to build it. We provide guaranteed funding if you're accepted to help get your project made. And then we also offer payouts based on viewership in that program. So if you make something cool, make it viral, you bring people over, then we'll pay you per view. So that's a way you can make money. Another way is like direct integrations for like in-app purchases in your product or advertising and things like that. This is kind of how people are already monetizing their games, but then they have to worry about how do they actually host this stuff and get their own domain, then worry about infrastructure and scaling. We're handling all of that for you. Another nice incentive is that you're put onto a domain that's well trusted and curated. So when you build your content, it's kind of like this isolated thing, and you try to then buy a domain and then get onto Google search results. You're doing all the hard labor of basically launching a brand new company almost every single time you do that. If you launch on Viverse, people can just find it in search, kind of like YouTube. I mean, you could compare it to that, what it would be like to make a video and host it on just a random domain and try to get people to go view it there versus just uploading it to YouTube and letting the algorithm get you eyes. It's kind of a major incentive as well.
And this all makes sense. So one thing that you mentioned was also this creator program, right? Can you maybe briefly tell us how does it work and what kind of things are you specifically looking at?
Yeah, we've funded all sorts of experiences from interactive music videos to hangout spaces for VR, social. I think right now we are really interested in finding ways that we can bring games to the platform when we view what do consumers really want when they come to our site. I mean, it's pretty varied, but the games button is clicked a lot, probably like twice as much as other things. So this is, I think, maybe just a common thing for interactive experiences on the web. That's what people look for generally. So we're looking to fund games, preferably things that are like ported versus built from scratch, just because it's quicker and easier for everyone involved. But yeah, we're open to anything. We even fund tools. Sometimes creators build Like one creator built a destruction library for Play Canvas and brought it to Viverse. And we paid for that. So.
And so let's say, since the span is pretty broad, right? Of it can be anything, even though people tend to gravitate toward games, but that does not necessarily mean that one is going to have a higher chance of success than the other. On the other hand, what kind of advice would you give to people that are applying to this creator program? Because I imagine you get dozens, if not hundreds, of requests and proposals. So what should people take care about?
I think maybe like effort to result ratio. The shorter projects that seem to have potentially a higher outcome, even if it's not as large. Like if you were going to compare a project that would take a year and bring you 500,000 views versus 3 months and 250,000 views, do the shorter one because it's less risk for everyone involved and you can get something out there quickly. Everything is evolving so fast, including our platform. So sometimes creators will come in, say 3 months ago, and when they made their pitch, the platform was only capable of so much. Then by the time they launch their content, we can do like 100 times more. So picking up really, really long-term projects is just not smart, I think, for us at the moment. So it doesn't mean we won't do it, but it's just shorter projects tend to have a better outcome. And then you can always do project 2, 3, 4, we'll continue to fund people.
Yeah, and I think it's about feasibility, right? Sometimes there are these big, ambitious things. It's like, okay, this looks very big, very complicated, and it's kind of like low risk, high rewards. I think it's probably, in a way, good way to describe it. And when you mention like launching this, right, and in sense also not just being funded, but also monetizing, what are the things that you have seen resonated more? And of course, we can discuss about games, let's say. If we just look at games for now, what are the games or experiences that tend to resonate more? Are those the branded one? Are those the one that replicate 2D experience, like a runner game, let's say, or a adventure game? So what are the things that tend to resonate, and how can you help people also decide and pick an experience that resonates with the web audience?
We haven't had many games launch yet, but I will say I don't think branded experiences are necessarily going to bring you immediate success. I think if you as a creator already have a strong social following, it's very useful to use that as a way to boost the content. In terms of the content itself, I think getting to fun quickly and then replayability are like two things that will lead to a lot of views over time. So you can think of it as a way like, how much effort does it take for you to get your like one person to actually view and experience your game? And if it's fun and replayable, that person will maybe play it 2, 3, 4 times, and each time that's a view for you, versus a story game that might be like a one-time playthrough. And so you put all the effort to get that person there, and then they'll play it, but they might never come back to it again. So it's just may not have the same level of payout. Though we love story experiences. I mean, those are usually the most well-developed, amazing things for people. But from a pure KPI perspective, replayability is a huge thing.
Yeah, and you have done this analogy with YouTube a few times, right? And it's kind of like it feels scary a bit, like comparing like a game, something that it can take months to produce, with something that is instead just a YouTube video, right? That it can take hours. Mm-hmm. The order of magnitude it's just completely different, right? And it like. On the other hand, we are approaching a way where creating these games can take hours, right? Because that's also what we were talking about. You mentioned vibe coding. You mentioned you can generate 3D meshes, dump them there. So with an idea that AI is going to unlock the ability to create more games quicker, right? not necessarily better games. How do you see, especially those elements being combined and generating something that remains compelling for an audience?
Yeah, that's an interesting question. It's not lost on me that the majority of our creators right now are professionals. And like, they're artists. They've won many awards. One of them recently won a Webby. They launched like their sequel on Viverse, which was awesome. But their craft, it's what they do. Now, when we look at AI, obviously we have to be super sensitive about it. But we're a user-generated content platform. Most people out in the world are not artists or engineers, and just like on YouTube, you have like the super highly produced stuff, and then you have a person with their iPhone walking around the streets, and both can see success. It doesn't mean that one shouldn't exist. And we've actually seen something that's in the middle, where a professional will basically, maybe they draw like 2 or 3 frames of something and then use AI to fill the gaps, or they'll like restyle their artwork for like the final production piece and use AI in the workflow to make things quicker. So I could see AI being like the thing that produces the content, somewhere in the middle as a tool, or just completely not used at all. And there's like going to be this huge range. And honestly, from all the stuff that we've funded so far, I think almost none of it was AI created. Maybe 1 or 2 was used like AI as a tool. But once we open the door to all game engines, I expect that maybe 80% of the content might have some form of AI, whatever. So I don't know. I don't think you can say AI's involvement will necessarily be an indicative of like how good the quality of the content will be.
But I like when you made the comparison, between YouTube creator that are highly produced and there are people just with their phones. I think that the people who are going to succeed in leveraging AI will be the one that really embrace it and make it as part of the experience. It's like when you film a video with your phone, you are sometimes not even trying to create something that is a highly production. You just go poor quality, because that's the moment that you're really leveraging the medium, right? And that's how everything is evolved, right? Like CapCut, just editing on your phone, that I still find completely nonsense. I don't know how people do it, but yeah, that's where people edit some videos, right, on their phone. So I think that there is that elements where the creators embrace the medium, understand it, and maybe one reason also, and then you can correct me if I'm wrong, well, you haven't seen many applications, it's just because AI is not there yet to provide that good enough base. And I mean, I don't think it's going to take years. Probably you're talking about months to get something that is more playable, because that's where we see a lot of this platform going. But harnessing that, and not just to replicate something that is done by a studio, by a one-person team, that's just a recipe for failure, because you will never win. You always create something crap, unless you start really using it for that purpose, for its strength.
Yeah, I definitely, I don't, honestly, I don't see like single prompt to output experience as being something that goes successful. I think it's something that, even if you use AI to produce your experience, it's something that you do over weeks, and then you finally come to a product that is pretty good, and then you release it. And I don't see someone making, the next Call of Duty using AI prompting. But maybe they make the next cookie clicker, whatever it is, the thing that goes super viral, but it just has to do with timing and the actual fun of it and all these kinds of things. I mean, there's so many things that go into the success of a game. You can see it on Steam. People spend millions to produce a really complex game, and it just completely flops. And then someone makes a weekend project and it's just fun, and it somehow takes off and everybody knows about it. So
very good point. So there was also a question that I had, because I noticed that there was this recent push from HTC in promoting Viverse. And I don't know if it's just my impression, right? Maybe just a stumble in the radar and the social media loop, you get into one and then you start seeing all things over and over. But I feel like there is being like a stronger push and attention towards Viverse, something that was launched actually years ago, if I'm correct. Now, what has been the main driver, or ever just hallucinating?
No, so definitely. I mean, Viverse had many kind of iterations. We launched Create, which was like the web builder tool, in August of last year, and then recently we did Worlds, which was we like separated the creator tool from the curation, which honestly, if you look at where we're going now, by also now opening the door to many different game engines to be published to our platform, you can see where the evolution of the product is going. And as it becomes more and more capable, and as more people out in the world are now more interested in producing interactive content for the web, I guess with AI getting better by the day as well, it just is all lining up, and HTC is realizing that this is kind of where the company is going. And yeah, there's definitely a lot of dedication from the executive team into seeing Viverse through.
That's great. I mean, I think because at some point, I don't think that there are options, but not that many anymore. In a way, like some have dropped, and so I think it is great. Also because it offers a different kind of like. First of all, one thing that I like is that it's open. So that means that you can import your stuff. You're not bound to something that happens all within the platform, and that's important. It's open also going out, because within your space, you can add links to things that are outside the space itself, right? So that makes it open to get in, but also to put stuff in, but also to go out. So maybe one question regarding just the building, right? For even the less technical people, what can you currently build or assemble if you don't have technical expertise in Viverse?
The web builder currently is pretty limited. It's kind of like a space builder. So you can build kind of like a nightclub or a room, a museum, that kind of stuff. You can bring in all of your own meshes. I've seen it done for like classrooms where teachers want to pull in a bunch of different materials together and have their kids go in. Some people build just like a nice hangout space for their friends for like social VR experiences. Though I will say, comparing Viverse to something like VR chat, it's pretty different in the way that a Viverse experience, because it's no install and it works across all your different devices. If your friends want to hang out in it, they could be like, two people could be in VR and they want to get their third friend involved, but the third friend's on vacation. He doesn't have all his gear or whatever. They can just text him a link and he can open it on his phone. They can still hang out with them and chat and all this kind of stuff. And he doesn't have to go through the process of setting up an account and like all of the things that are involved with a typical kind of gaming multiplayer experience, which is really nice. But of course, if you want that super high-end VR social experience, VR chat is definitely the way to go. Still, we don't have that level of presence in our platform. So I think we build this kind of space where your parents could experience it, right? Like you can send the link, even if they don't necessarily immediately understand it. It's like rendered immediately on screen, and if they just play around with it, they can see that they can move the camera around and character around. Yeah, I mean, you can have really, really high level experiences in there and very low level ones. And so I think that makes Viverse kind of unique in a sense.
I just wanted to have a quick break to remind you that if you're enjoying this conversation, you should definitely check out the XR AI Spotlight newsletter.
By subscribing, you will get weekly interviews like this one directly in your inbox. And by subscribing, you also get access to a list of tools and apps that allows you to experience Gaussian Splatting in VR on Quest and Vision Pro. Just check the first link in the episode description. And now, let's get back to the show.
You mentioned a couple of elements. One is, of course, the fact that people can experience the space in VR. Another one is that can be experienced with others, right? So when let's start with the shared experience. What's your view on that? How do you support multiplayer? How are people actually be able to interact with each other? What about avatars? So that kind of like shared element.
Sure. So we have a unified avatar system. Basically, you don't have to make an account. You can join any experience as a guest and we'll just give you a temporary avatar. But if you make an account, you can pick from realistic avatars where you just take a photo and it converts you into an avatar. Then we have some like cartoonish ones. And then we also support VRMs. So VRMs are like a typical standard, especially in the VTuber and VR chat space. So you can go to any marketplace on the web that sells VRM avatars, purchase those or make your own and then import them. And your avatar will go from experience to experience with you. Some people who make experiences want your character to be something different because they want to make story or whatever. So we allow that as well. They can switch your character out. Kind of like if someone's making a prop hunt game or something and turn you into a mesh of some other thing. And yeah, I think that's kind of something that's a little bit unique because it's all also web-based, very kind of low barrier to entry to do that. And some other stuff like all of the experiences, whether it's built on the web builder or in Play Canvas, we insert voice chat and text chat into it automatically. And if you're the host, you can mute people, kick people, that kind of thing. When you publish worlds, you can publish them as private or unlisted or public, just like a video would be on other platforms. We've seen creators do things where they launch worlds and then list them as public, but with a password. And then they only give the password to their Patreon subscribers. So that's like another way people have tried to monetize the platform. So yeah, it's
curious actually about that option. I mean, how did that work out? What kind of spaces were them in a way? Because just opening up and giving a password on Patreon just to specific subscribers, that's an interesting. Do you remember what was the spaces about or?
Yeah, the first world that they made was kind of like this cyberpunk stellarium. And then I guess they already had a pretty big following because they do like physical artworks as well as virtual ones. I think a lot of their experiences are maybe associated with other kind of movie fandoms and stuff like that. So I think they're producing kind of interesting mechanical worlds, and people who are really into that already follow him and sign up to his Patreon are then keeping access to these other spaces.
And this is another thing, usually we think in a way about studio producing games that then create digital worlds. I think that there is an opportunity for people that create physical things or they are active in the physical real world to just create then counterparts that can be, let's say, an upsell or a, let's say, branded hub of some sort for their presence. That is not just a website where people can spend, instead of the 30 seconds on a website, maybe 1.5 minutes or 2 minutes on that word. And I think this is something that is underexplored.
Yeah, definitely. So one of the things is that we support Gaussian splats directly. So Gaussian splats, you can just shoot a video of a real world space, and then AI will then produce this kind of point cloud that looks, super realistic. And you can just publish a Viverse world that's literally just your Gaussian splat. And that means you can archive real world spaces. You can give the opportunity for people to kind of like travel to those spaces, walk around them, and new opportunities there. You can mix and match, so you can have like your Gaussian splat environment, but then add 3D meshes into it or triggers and things like that. So if you want to have like a super realistic environment, but has some additional information like a museum, it's like super low barrier to entry. You can make one using your iPhone.
And this is actually, I think, the only platform that allows to do this. In all honesty, I have checked because I've done a research of all tools that allow to view, for example, Gaussian splatting in VR. I built a list. If people subscribe to my newsletter, you can get the list. But the point is that it was the only tool that allowed to not only import the splats, but import multiple things. Right? It could be another mesh. It could be, and create a scene around it. Because usually you just get the splat, right? And that is usually just like, it's nice, it's cool, it's super realistic. But what if my focus is not just the splat, but create a broader scene? Then I cannot do it. Now, I have to be honest, on web, they look amazing. I think it's great. On VR, it still can be tricky in a sense that when you are on Quest, especially getting the splat, depending how big is the splat, it can be a bit like frame rate can drop, but on web, it's pretty solid.
Yeah, we're working on expanding Polygon streaming to also support splat streaming, because people want to have splats that are enormous. You know, they want a whole city block or something, but you don't need all that data all at once. You're only viewing it from one point. And we have done, I've seen work in progress where we've streamed in even like 4D splats where it's an actual animated person as a Gaussian splat. And it works pretty well. You just hop in and then all of a sudden you have an animated person in front of you as a Gaussian splat. And you didn't have
Is that something that works right now?
Hey, I've seen functional versions, but it's not open to the public yet.
Interesting, because that's another mind-blowing. I was looking at this, and technically every frame is a splat of 60, 70 megabytes, right?
Yeah.
So that's an interesting challenge for Polygon streaming, I can imagine.
Yes, yeah, but it's functional. So I think, actually the challenge with the 4D splats is the actual generation of them. Like, how do you capture a person from all angles effectively? And generally those are made in studios right now, which makes them not very commonly found, I guess, or used. And most of what we do on our platform is all about like the general public user.
And here I would like to give a shout out to Olli Uttunen, actually. I don't know if you know his works. He was one of the guests a few weeks ago, and he has created this camera array tool that allows to create these 4D synthetic splats. So you are in Blender, you have an animation, and then creates all this picture with this array camera that is all virtual, and then allows you to export the animation of that object that was like just a 3D animation, but export it as a 4D GS. Then at that point remains the challenge of compressing and making it viewable. But it indeed address one of the points you're saying, right? Capturing 4D GS at high quality requires this huge camera array that are real with real physical camera, sometimes dozens of this. And it's massive endeavor. While instead there is this plugin for Blender he built that maybe something who is interested in exploring with that, I think might be crazy, and maybe soon put it in Viverse, because where to watch it remains a problem. So why not distribute it through that?
Yeah, we should connect with him and put some worlds up with his stuff, because I mean, it is functional. Like, we could publish with it. We just don't have the tools open for people to publish. Yeah, that would be super cool. So he's rendering 3D content as Gaussian splats, animated Gaussian splats.
Correct. Yes. And so all the lights and all that can be baked in a way, right? So, and that is what's the added advantage of doing that. Now remains the questions, let's say, what format, what's the added value, and especially what is as being rendered. Because, for example, with objects that we all know very well, like fur or reflective objects, they look absolutely crap when you just do it with volumetric capture, right? When instead with Gaussian splat, that's a completely different clothing, for example. You can imagine like a runway of showing your clothes, or maybe fur. All these are actually doing dramatically better with Gaussian splatting, of course.
Very interesting.
So we were mentioning polygon streaming a few times, right? Can you explain that a little bit to us? Is that like automatic, like magic? How much I can push this, right? How many million of polygons I can get in the view of the user? Does this work on web or only, or also in VR? Can you explain that a little bit more?
Yeah, so it works on all the platforms, but obviously you still have to worry about memory. I think memory is the biggest limiter actually on the like mobile and VR devices. On desktop at MWC, we had a demo where we had 70 million polygons in the environment on screen using polygon streaming, and it was running like 60 FPS with SSAO and all sorts of things. But yeah, I mean, that one used web GPU, so it had a little bit of a boost from the newer web technologies. But in terms of like standard usage, people have gone from like their environment using like 1.5 gigs of VRAM to a couple hundred megabytes using polygon streaming. And so they would go from like desktop only to then suddenly working across all the devices. And the way it works is so there's a dashboard where you upload your mesh, and there's a processing phase. And the processing phase will produce LODs, but not on like a full mesh basis. We actually produce LODs like a kind of voxelized. So even if you uploaded like an entire environment, we're like breaking the mesh into like cube sizes and then producing LODs for each one of those. And then the system, you'll get like a stream link for that one mesh that was processed, and you use that within Play Canvas or any. Actually, we have a whole bunch of SDKs for different game engines. And so you'll replace your standard mesh with the polygon streamed one. And when your world loads, the asset will then start to stream in based on the viewer's distance and the size of the mesh. And then we'll stream in the LOD level for the portion of the mesh depending on that distance. And we're actually working on animated polygon streaming as well, so you can put your skeletal meshes in there. That's I think we're in like beta testing right now. It's almost ready to release. So you can potentially upload like a 10 million polygon character. I don't know why you would have something like that, but it is possible. We've seen like the testing is always testing all like the craziest possible thing, like a dragon from a commercial studio.
And honestly, when we look about this, I think business are even worse than dragons. In a sense, like engines or these kind of things, in a way, it tends to be in terms of completely, they don't even have a concept of polygons. You know, it's a bit like nonsense. Why do we need polygons? But then they want to see stuff in VR, they want to see stuff in 3D, and then that's when reality hit them, you know? So one question just to clarify regarding the technicalities of this in a way. So this is something that I need to set up when I am in Play Canvas. It's not like from the web editor. I can go there and then things are automatically streamed if I upload a very heavy model, for example. There has to be something that happens when I upload the experience to Viverse.
Yeah, currently it's manual. We are working on an automated system where you can just tag certain meshes and have the final publishing process start to convert them for you. I think it's kind of complicated because, there's this conversion step, and we always want to make sure that what you see before you publish is equivalent. But if we do it automatically for you, there's a potential that the final output isn't exactly what you expect. But I think we're getting close. We might do some testing soon. But right now, you do have to manually do it. You have to go to the dashboard for polygon streaming and manually upload your meshes and swap them out. There's some additional benefits to polygon streaming. It's not just about the polys. We also, during that process of converting, if there's like duplicate materials or the textures can be atlas together, we do all of that. And recently we enabled AI enhancement. So your textures will be then like auto upscaled as well when you're looking at them. So if you, I mean, typically in like game assets, when you get too close, you'll notice the aliasing or like blurriness of textures. And now we're like, you can have the two meshes together. And because we know how close you are and what's being streamed to you, will then up-res the texture before it reaches you. So then you kind of get rid of that aliasing.
So just because we mentioned this aspect about polygons or the fidelity of the models that have been imported, right? How are instead, for example, businesses using and leveraging the platform? And I'm referring to that because often, or at least what I hear, is that companies have these huge architectural models, or maybe they are like mechanical parts, and they tend to be huge, and sometimes they are animated again, right? Because that is another feature that has to do with like a function of a specific object or piece of equipment. How is Viverse suited for example, businesses?
Yeah, I've seen, actually, when you go to the Polygon streaming website, we have like a huge, it's a turbine engine that you can like look at the different parts of and stuff, which is a kind of common business use case to look at individual things. But there is something more than that. Some companies, they produce entire like factory warehouses with automation and all these things, and they want to see like how do all these pieces come together in the footprint of the warehouse. And at MWC, one company came in and was like, hey, we're building this like 6-story data center, and we were thinking about producing a digital twin for the data center, but thinking about 3D modeling this entire space is crazy. And for that one, they saw that we support Gaussian splatting and thought, that's amazing. We can just have someone like run around the space and then turn it into 3D. And then they would overlay the status lights on the server racks. And the whole idea is that in the control center, they can have like full 3D view of which servers have an issue. And then when they send someone to go fix it, he can literally see where he has to walk to, which to them was this super daunting idea of this gigantic data center. Like explaining to someone how to get to the correct server on the correct floor was, I guess, worrisome. Yeah, another business use case is for like movie studios. One thing that's been happening now is when they do an off-site shoot, they have to get permits, and it's like a one-day thing or like a few hours. But if there's something wrong with the footage, getting actors and that space back for a second time is extremely expensive or impossible. So what they do now is when they go to shoot after or before the shoot happens, they'll do like a Gaussian recording of the entire set. And then later on, if they need to do an insert, they can use that Gaussian splat, usually rendered in like Unreal on like an LED space or a green screen space, and they can do like reshoots. But typically producers and actors and stuff are not like on the studio lot all the time. And so if they want to walk around the set, Viverse could be a very viable solution. Like they could take the Gaussian from their set, upload it, and then just send a link to actors or producers, and they can hop right in with on their phone or like on their laptop with like no technical barrier, which is amazing. Like they don't have to install an Unreal build or what I mean. Like imagine the logistics of all that. Yeah,
absolutely. You can have it on your phone. I'm just not sure. Does Viverse create meshes that so to make the Gaussian walkable in a way, or Because you still have just the cloud, right? You don't have mesh data where there is altitude or something like that and people can walk. They would just walk through, not on top.
No, you have to place. So what we do is you import the Gaussian. Well, actually, you can do it both in the web builder or in Play Canvas. But in Play Canvas, when you bring it in, then you can place like invisible colliders. So you'd put like a box under the ground. If you have stairs, you'd make like a ramp. Honestly, you actually don't really want that high fidelity of collision because it's just, you're going to get caught on everything. Actually, you need like this very low quality meshing for walking around on stuff typically.
Yeah. So, ANDRANIK, thank you very much. I mean, what can we expect from Viverse, let's say upcoming months, that people can get them excited and get to apply to the creator program, build more worlds, or maybe reach out for business use cases? What is that people can expect from Viverse?
Yeah, so we're going to open the door to all sorts of content, web engines, Unreal, Unity, and Godot. And then we're also working on monetization tools like subscriber-only content and advertising and all sorts of things, in-app purchases. And we're kind of hoping that people will pick us as the place that they launch their content and send their friends to play. And yeah, I think that's our primary goal right now, is just to open the door to as many experiences as we can. And we're also working on supporting the open source communities that build these game engines. We haven't sealed the deals yet, but for things like A-Frame and 3JS and stuff like that, we're talking to contributors. And I mean, they're the backbone of all this web development, and we want to see those communities continue to thrive. And yeah, so we'll fund them as well as much as we can.
ANDRANIK, thank you very much. So where can people apply for the creator program? Is that on your website?
Yes, yeah. If they go to create.viverse.com, we have a banner for the creator program, and they can just
awesome.
pick it up.
And people will find it directly in the episode description. Thank you very much, ANDRANIK.
Yeah, no worries. Thank you for having me.
Thank you very much for listening in. If you like the show, remember to leave a rating on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, or a thumbs up on YouTube. It really helps me keep doing this and shine the spotlights on the greatest founders and makers, pushing the boundaries of XR and AI. Also, make sure to check out the show page xraispotlight.com, where you can find more conversation like this one. Till next time.